The morning sun cast long shadows across the dense forest of Pine Ridge National Park when Ranger Mike Henderson's radio crackled to life. He was checking trail markers near the popular hiking area when the urgent voice of his supervisor, Captain Sarah Martinez, filled the quiet wilderness. All units, we have a situation developing at Sector 7. Reports of armed individuals near the campground. Exercise extreme caution. Mike's heart quickened. Sector 7 was where families with children often set up camp during the summer months. It was late July, peak season, and the area would be crowded with vacationers seeking refuge from the city heat. He immediately changed direction, his heavy boots crunching through the underbrush as he made his way toward the potential threat. The radio buzzed again. "Henderson, what's your location?" "About 2 miles from Sector 7, Captain. I can be there in 15 minutes. "Negative. Hold your position and observe only. We're getting conflicting reports. Some campers are saying they heard gunshots, but others are claiming it's just target practice. We need eyes on the situation before we respond." Mike found an elevated position behind a cluster of oak trees that gave him a clear view of the campground below. Through his binoculars, he could see several families going about their normal camping activities. Children played near tents while parents prepared meals over camp stoves. Everything seemed peaceful, almost too peaceful given the reports they had received. Then he saw her. A teenage girl, probably around 16 or 17, stood at the far end of the campground near a makeshift shooting range. She held what appeared to be a rifle, though from his distance Mike couldn't make out the exact type. Several adults stood behind her, watching intently. Mike adjusted his binoculars to get a better look. The girl had shoulder-length brown hair tied back in a practical ponytail. She wore simple jeans and a green t-shirt that seemed too big for her slight frame. Despite her youth, there was something about her posture that spoke of confidence and experience. She held the weapon with the kind of ease that comes from years of practice, not the awkward grip of a beginner. "Captain, I have visual contact," Mike whispered into his radio. "There's a teenage girl with what appears to be a rifle. She's at a shooting range setup. No immediate signs of danger to campers, but I need a closer look." "Understood. Backup is 20 minutes out. Keep monitoring." Mike watched as the girl raised the rifle to her shoulder. Even from his distance, he could see the fluid motion, the way she settled into her stance with practiced ease. The adults behind her stepped back, and Mike noticed they were wearing what looked like official jackets, though he couldn't make out any insignia. The first shot rang out, echoing through the valley. Mike instinctively ducked, then realized the shot had been fired downrange at what appeared to be legitimate targets. Through his binoculars, he could see paper targets mounted on stands about 100 yards from the girl's position. What happened next made Mike question what he was seeing. The girl fired 3 more shots in rapid succession, each one deliberate and controlled. Even without being able to see the targets clearly, Mike could tell from the reactions of the adults that she was hitting her marks with impressive accuracy. "This doesn't look like a threat situation," Mike radioed back to his captain. "It appears to be some kind of organized shooting event. The girl seems to know what she's doing. Stay put, Henderson. We're still getting panic calls from other areas of the park. Something doesn't add up." As if responding to his captain's words, Mike's radio suddenly filled with chatter from other rangers stationed throughout the park. Reports were coming in from multiple locations about the sound of gunfire, but the descriptions varied wildly. Some reported rapid automatic fire, others described single, precise shots. The timing didn't match what Mike was observing. He refocused his attention on the girl below. She had moved to a different position and was now firing from what appeared to be a more challenging angle. The adults with her were taking notes and talking among themselves. One of them, an older man with gray hair, approached the girl and said something that made her nod seriously before taking her next shot. The shot was perfect. Even Mike, an experienced outdoorsman and decent shot himself, could appreciate the skill required to hit a target at that distance under what appeared to be windy conditions. The girl lowered her rifle and turned to the adults, a modest smile on her face. "Captain," Mike said into his radio, "I think we might be dealing with some kind of competition or training event. This girl is exceptional. Professional level accuracy. Copy that. But, Henderson, we just got another call. Hikers on the North Trail are reporting that someone is shooting in their direction. They're pinned down behind rocks." Mike felt a chill run down his spine. If the girl he was watching wasn't the source of the threat, then who was? Mike's radio exploded with urgent chatter as reports continued flooding in from across Pine Ridge National Park. The situation was becoming increasingly confusing, with gunfire reported in at least 4 different locations, all occurring simultaneously. His training told him this was either a coordinated attack or a massive misunderstanding. All units, we have hikers trapped on the North Trail. Captain Martinez's voice cut through the static. Johnson, what's your status on the eastern perimeter? Ranger Tom Johnson's voice crackled back, heavy with concern. Captain, I'm seeing muzzle flashes from the ridge line, but they're not aimed at people. Someone's shooting at targets I can't identify. The hikers are scared, but not actually in danger. Mike kept his binoculars trained on the teenage girl below. She had moved to yet another shooting position and was now firing from behind a barrier that hadn't been there earlier. The adults with her had spread out, some taking positions with their own weapons. This was definitely not a casual target practice session. Henderson, I need you to get closer, Captain Martinez commanded. Something's not right about any of this. Multiple shooting locations, conflicting reports, and now we have what appears to be a coordinated event happening in our park without permits. Mike began making his way down the hillside, using the thick forest cover to mask his approach. As he got closer, he could hear voices more clearly. The adults were speaking in what sounded like technical terms, discussing distances, wind speed, and something about real-world scenarios. The girl had paused in her shooting and was consulting what looked like a map with the gray-haired man Mike had noticed earlier. She pointed to different areas of the park, and the man nodded, making notes on a clipboard. Mike managed to position himself close enough to overhear part of their conversation. The next target is approximately 300 yards northeast, the man was saying. The angle will be challenging because of the terrain, and you'll need to account for the wind coming off the lake. Understood, Mr. Peterson, the girl replied, her voice calm and professional. What about the time constraint? You have 2 minutes from the signal. Remember, this is about precision under pressure, not speed. Mike felt his stomach drop. This sounded like some kind of tactical training exercise, but why wasn't the Park Service notified? And why were they using the public camping areas? His radio buzzed quietly. Henderson, report. Mike whispered back. Captain, this appears to be a training exercise. The girl is receiving instructions for targets at various distances. They're calling it real-world scenarios. I'm hearing references to time constraints and precision under pressure. Training exercise? We have no record of permits for any military or law enforcement training in the park today. Before Mike could respond, the girl shouldered her rifle again and fired a single shot toward the northeast. The sound echoed off the surrounding hills, and Mike realized that this shot was aimed far beyond the campground's boundaries. That shot was directed toward the North Trail area, Mike reported urgently. The same area where hikers reported being pinned down. All units converge on Sector 7 immediately, Captain Martinez ordered. We're treating this as a potential public safety threat. But, as Mike watched, something strange happened. The gray-haired man pulled out a radio and spoke into it. Within moments, Mike's own radio crackled with an incoming call. Pine Ridge Park Service. This is Colonel Peterson with the National Youth Marksmanship Program. We need to speak with your commanding officer immediately. Captain Martinez's voice was sharp when she responded. Colonel Peterson, this is Captain Martinez. You're conducting unauthorized activities in my park, and we have multiple reports of endangered civilians. Captain, I understand your concern, but I assure you no civilians are in danger. We have spotters at every location, and all targets are positioned in safe zones. However, I realize we should have coordinated better with local authorities. Mike watched as the teenage girl continued to listen to instructions from Peterson, but her expression had changed. She looked concerned, glancing repeatedly toward the areas where Mike knew other rangers were positioning themselves. Mr. Peterson, she said quietly, are we causing problems for the park rangers? I can hear their radios. Peterson nodded grimly. Unfortunately, yes. We may need to conclude today's assessment earlier than planned. Assessment? The girl asked. Emily, you're being evaluated for the junior national team. Today's exercise was designed to test your abilities in realistic field conditions, but it appears we've created a misunderstanding with local law enforcement. Mike's mind raced. This was some kind of competitive shooting evaluation, but the level of complexity and the locations being used suggested something far more serious than typical marksmanship competitions. Emily, as he now knew her name, looked disappointed but nodded understanding. Should I stand down? Not yet. We have one final scenario, but it will require the cooperation of the Park Service. Peterson keyed his radio again. Captain Martinez, I'd like to request a brief meeting. My student here has one final evaluation scenario, and I believe your Rangers might actually find it impressive rather than threatening if they understood what was happening. Mike could hear the skepticism in his captain's voice. Colonel, my primary concern is public safety. What exactly is your student doing that requires shooting across multiple areas of the park? Captain, Emily here holds the current national record for precision shooting in her age group. Today's evaluation involves her hitting targets at various distances and angles while accounting for real environmental factors. She's not shooting at people or endangering anyone. In fact, she's demonstrating the kind of skills that might one day serve our country in ways you'd find admirable. Through his binoculars, Mike watched Emily check her equipment with the methodical precision of a professional. Despite her youth, everything about her actions spoke of exceptional training and natural talent. The adults around her treated her with the respect typically reserved for accomplished experts. What's the final scenario? Captain Martinez asked over the radio. Peterson paused before answering. A target at 500 yards, partially obscured by natural obstacles, firing from an elevated position while being observed by multiple parties. It's designed to test performance under scrutiny and pressure. Mike realized he was about to witness something extraordinary, but he also knew his captain was right to be cautious. The situation was highly unusual, and the lack of proper coordination could have led to a tragedy. Captain Martinez arrived at Sector 7 with 3 additional Rangers, their vehicles creating a small convoy that drew the attention of nearby campers. Mike emerged from his concealed position to brief his supervisor while keeping Emily and her evaluation team in sight. The situation is not what we initially thought, Mike explained as they approached the group. But it's definitely unusual. This girl, Emily, appears to be undergoing some kind of advanced marksmanship assessment. Colonel Peterson met them halfway, his bearing clearly that of a military officer despite being dressed in civilian outdoor gear. He was accompanied by 2 other adults who introduced themselves as representatives from the National Youth Marksmanship Program and the Junior Olympic Shooting Team. Captain Martinez, I apologize for the confusion, Peterson began formally. We should have coordinated with your office before conducting this evaluation. Emily Chun is a 17-year-old competitive shooter who's being considered for several national programs. Today's assessment was designed to test her abilities in field conditions rather than controlled indoor ranges. Emily approached the group, her rifle secured, and pointed safely toward the ground. Up close, Mike could see she was even younger than he had initially thought, but her confident demeanor and respectful attitude impressed him immediately. Ma'am, I'm sorry we caused any trouble, Emily said to Captain Martinez. Mr. Peterson told me all the safety protocols had been arranged, but I should have asked more questions about park coordination. Captain Martinez studied the teenager carefully. Emily, what exactly have you been shooting at? We've had reports from multiple areas of the park. Regulation targets placed at various distances and elevations. Emily replied without hesitation. The farthest was 450 yards, positioned in a natural clearing where there's no risk to hikers or campers. Each location was scouted in advance to ensure safe backstops and clear lines of sight. One of Peterson's associates, a woman who introduced herself as Dr. Sarah Kim from the Olympic Training Center, stepped forward with a tablet showing detailed maps of the park. Captain, we have GPS coordinates for every target location, complete safety assessments, and spotters positioned at each site. Emily has been hitting targets that would challenge experienced military marksmen, and she's doing it with remarkable consistency. Mike found himself genuinely curious about Emily's abilities. How long have you been shooting competitively? Since I was 12, Emily answered. But I started learning basic safety and marksmanship when I was 8. My grandfather was a military instructor, and he taught me that precision shooting is as much about mental discipline as it is about technical skill. Captain Martinez remained skeptical, but was clearly intrigued. Show me these targets you've been hitting. Peterson handed her a pair of high-powered binoculars and pointed toward the northeast ridge. The target at 300 yards is visible from here. Emily hit the center ring with her last shot. Through the binoculars, Captain Martinez could see a distant target stand with a paper bullseye. Even at her distance, she could make out what appeared to be a tight grouping of holes in the center of the target. That's impressive, she admitted. But why conduct this evaluation in a public park instead of a controlled range? Dr. Kim answered this question. Emily's skills on indoor ranges are already well documented. She holds multiple junior records and rarely misses her intended target under controlled conditions. But elite competitive shooting often involves outdoor environments with variables like wind, elevation changes, and natural lighting conditions. We needed to assess how she performs when dealing with these real-world factors. Emily added quietly, the Olympic trials next year will include outdoor precision events. If I want to make the team, I need to prove I can shoot accurately in any environment, not just perfect indoor conditions. Mike was struck by the teenager's maturity and focus. What got you interested in competitive shooting? Emily's face brightened slightly. My grandfather used to take me to the range when I was little. He said shooting teaches patience, concentration, and respect for responsibility. When I discovered I had a natural talent for it, he encouraged me to pursue competition. He passed away 2 years ago, but he always said he hoped I'd represent our country someday. Captain Martinez looked between Emily and Peterson. Assuming your safety protocols are as thorough as you claim, what would this final scenario involve? Peterson consulted his notes. A target at 500 yards, positioned on the far side of Eagle Lake. Emily would shoot from the elevated position behind us, which adds complexity due to the downward angle and air currents coming off the water. The target is placed against a natural earthen backstop with no possibility of overshoot endangering anyone. And the purpose is to demonstrate precision shooting at extended range while being observed by unfamiliar officials, Dr. Kim explained. Competition environments can be stressful, with judges, media, and crowds watching every shot. Emily needs to prove she can maintain her accuracy, even when feeling scrutinized or pressured. Emily looked directly at Captain Martinez. Ma'am, if you'd prefer we stop here, I understand completely. We should have gotten proper permission before using your park for this evaluation. The honesty and responsibility in Emily's voice seemed to affect Captain Martinez. Mike could see his supervisor weighing the situation carefully. Let me see the target location first, Captain Martinez decided. If your safety measures are truly as comprehensive as you claim, and if this young lady is as skilled as you suggest, then perhaps we can allow one final demonstration. But I want my rangers positioned as additional spotters to verify safety protocols. Peterson nodded gratefully. That would be very much appreciated, Captain. As they prepared to move to the shooting position, Mike found himself walking alongside Emily. Are you nervous about shooting with all of us watching? Emily considered the question seriously. A little, but that's part of the challenge. If I can't handle pressure from friendly observers like park rangers, I definitely won't be ready for international competition where people are specifically hoping I'll miss. And you really think you can hit a target at 500 yards? Emily's response was confident, but not boastful. On a good day, under these conditions, yes. But shooting isn't about guarantees. It's about doing everything correctly and accepting the results. Some days the shot finds the center, and some days it doesn't. The goal is to minimize the variables you can control. Mike was impressed by her thoughtful approach. This wasn't just a talented teenager showing off. This was a serious athlete preparing for elite competition. As they reached the elevated shooting position overlooking Eagle Lake, he began to understand why the evaluation team had chosen this challenging location. The elevated shooting position offered a breathtaking view of Eagle Lake and the surrounding wilderness, but Mike quickly understood why it presented such a challenging shot. The target, visible through high-powered spotting scopes, appeared tiny at the 500-yard distance. The downward angle meant Emily would need to compensate for gravity's effect on the bullet's trajectory, while wind currents rising from the lake's surface created an additional variable. Emily knelt at the edge of the rocky outcrop, carefully arranging her equipment. She had produced a shooting mat, bipod, and what Mike learned was a precision rifle chambered in .308 Winchester. Everything about her setup spoke of serious competition-level preparation. "The wind is tricky here," observed Ranger Johnson, who had been positioned as a spotter with a view of the target area. "I can see it affecting the trees differently at various elevations." Emily nodded, pulling out what looked like a small electronic device. "This measures wind speed and direction," she explained to the watching rangers. "At this distance, even a 5-mile-per-hour crosswind can throw a shot several inches off target." Dr. Kim positioned herself with a spotting scope, ready to call the shot's impact. "Emily, remember, this is about demonstrating consistency under observation pressure. Take your time and follow your normal routine." Captain Martinez watched with interest as Emily began her pre-shot routine. She checked her equipment methodically, adjusted her position multiple times until she appeared completely comfortable, then spent several minutes studying the target area through her rifle's scope. "What exactly are you looking for?" Mike asked quietly. "Wind patterns, light conditions, anything that might affect the bullet's flight path," Emily replied without taking her eye from the scope. "At this distance, the bullet will be in the air for almost a full second. A lot can change during that time." Peterson approached Captain Martinez with a rangefinder. "The exact distance is 487 yards, with a 23-foot elevation drop to the target. For perspective, most police sniper training involves targets at 100 to 200 yards maximum. Military snipers train for distances like this, but Emily is doing it with the kind of precision rifle a civilian competitor can legally own." Emily made a final adjustment to her scope and settled into her shooting position. Mike noticed how her breathing became controlled and rhythmic, and her entire demeanor shifted from conversational to intensely focused. "Wind is currently 7 miles per hour from the southwest," Johnson called out from his spotting position. "Conditions appear stable." "Thank you," Emily acknowledged, then fell silent for nearly 30 seconds as she prepared for the shot. When the shot came, it surprised Mike despite his anticipation. The rifle's report echoed across the lake, and Emily remained motionless in her shooting position, continuing to look through her scope. "Impact," Dr. Kim called out through her spotting scope. "Center ring, slightly right of dead center." Peterson smiled broadly. "Outstanding shot, Emily. That group would place in the top 5 at national championships." But Emily wasn't finished. She worked the rifle's bolt smoothly, chambering another round. "Mr. Peterson, may I attempt the follow-up scenario?" "Follow-up scenario?" Captain Martinez asked. "2 precision shots in sequence, both to the same point of impact," Peterson explained. "It demonstrates consistency and the ability to maintain concentration after the pressure of the first shot." Emily had already settled back into her shooting position. Mike watched her repeat the exact same preparation routine, but noticed her movements seemed even more controlled the second time. The second shot came approximately 40 seconds after the first. Through the spotting scopes, the observers could see it had impacted within an inch of the first shot. "Exceptional," Dr. Kim declared. "Emily, that grouping would be competitive at the international level." Emily finally rose from her shooting position, carefully securing her rifle. Mike was struck by how calm she appeared, as if hitting targets at 500 yards was simply routine for her. "How do you maintain that level of concentration?" Ranger Johnson asked. "I felt nervous just watching." Emily smiled modestly. "Practice helps, but mostly it's about trusting your preparation. If you've done everything correctly leading up to the shot, you just have to follow through and accept the result." Captain Martinez approached Emily directly. "Young lady, I owe you an apology. When we first started receiving reports about shooting in the park, my concern was for public safety. I never imagined we'd witness this level of skill." "No apology necessary, ma'am," Emily replied. "You were doing your job protecting people. I'm just grateful you allowed me to complete the evaluation." Peterson gathered his evaluation materials while the Rangers examined the shooting position. "Captain, I hope you understand this young lady represents something quite remarkable. Her combination of natural talent, technical training, and mental discipline is extremely rare." Mike found himself genuinely impressed. "Emily, what are your goals with this sport?" "Short term, I want to make the junior Olympic team next year, she answered. Long term, I'd love to represent the United States in international competition. My grandfather always said the greatest honor for a marksman is to serve their country, whether in military service or international sport. Dr. Kim packed away her spotting scope while addressing Captain Martinez. Emily's evaluation scores today will likely qualify her for advanced training programs. The shot sequence you just witnessed would be considered expert-level performance even among adult competitors. As the evaluation team prepared to leave, Emily approached the Rangers one final time. Thank you for letting me finish the assessment. I learned something today about handling pressure and unexpected situations that I couldn't have learned on any indoor range. Captain Martinez shook Emily's hand. I learned something today too. I've been a park ranger for 15 years, and I thought I understood what marksmanship meant. You've shown me there's a level of precision and mental discipline I never imagined possible. Mike watched Emily pack her equipment with the same methodical care she had shown in every other aspect of the day. Her rifle was secured in a hard case, her shooting accessories organized in specific compartments, and every piece of brass from her fired cartridges collected and disposed of properly. As the evaluation team prepared to depart, Mike realized he had witnessed something extraordinary. This wasn't just a teenager with good aim. This was a young athlete operating at a level of excellence that few people ever achieve in any field. 3 weeks after the incident at Pine Ridge National Park, Mike Henderson found himself researching competitive shooting online during his off-duty hours. The encounter with Emily Chun had left him curious about the sport and the level of dedication required to achieve her level of skill. Captain Martinez had filed a detailed report about the day's events, recommending that the Park Service develop better coordination protocols for legitimate training activities. The report specifically mentioned Emily's exceptional skills and professional conduct throughout the evaluation process. Mike discovered that Emily's performance that day had indeed qualified her for the Junior Olympic training program. News articles described her as one of the most promising young marksmen in the country, with coaches predicting she had the potential to compete at the highest international levels. Dr. Kim had sent a follow-up letter to Captain Martinez, thanking the Park Service for their cooperation and providing additional context about Emily's achievements. The letter revealed that Emily maintained straight-A grades while training 40 hours per week for competition. She had started a shooting safety program at her high school and volunteered at youth camps teaching firearms safety and basic marksmanship. The letter also mentioned that Emily's grandfather had been a decorated military sniper who had served 3 tours overseas. His influence on Emily went far beyond shooting technique. He had instilled in her values of service, discipline, and respect for the responsibility that comes with exceptional skills. Mike learned that the day at Pine Ridge had been Emily's final evaluation for a scholarship program that would fund her training through college. The program was designed to identify young athletes who could represent the United States in international competition while pursuing their education. 6 months later, Mike was reading the local newspaper when he came across an article about regional shooting championships. Emily Chun had won her division by the largest margin in the competition's history, breaking several standing records in the process. The article mentioned that she had credited her success partially to learning to perform under unexpected pressure during an evaluation at Pine Ridge National Park. The article quoted Emily as saying, "The most important lesson I learned this year was that real competition isn't just about hitting targets on a range. It's about maintaining your focus and professionalism when everything doesn't go according to plan, when people are watching who don't understand what you're doing, and when the pressure feels overwhelming." Captain Martinez had framed a photo from that day showing Emily at her shooting position overlooking Eagle Lake. She kept it in her office as a reminder that initial assumptions about situations aren't always correct, and that young people can demonstrate levels of excellence that surpass adult expectations. The incident had also led to positive changes in park policies. The service developed new protocols for coordinating with legitimate sporting and educational groups who needed to use park facilities for training purposes. The goal was to support appropriate activities while maintaining public safety standards. Mike often found himself telling the story to other rangers and park visitors who expressed interest in shooting sports. He had gained a new appreciation for the discipline and mental strength required for precision marksmanship, understanding it as much more than simply having good aim. Emily had written a thank you letter to the Park Service, expressing gratitude for their professionalism and understanding during what could have been a difficult situation. She mentioned that the experience had taught her valuable lessons about communication, preparation, and dealing with unexpected challenges that would serve her well in future competitions. A year after the Pine Ridge evaluation, Mike received news that Emily had made the junior Olympic team and was preparing for international competition in Germany. The article mentioned that she planned to study engineering in college while continuing her competitive shooting career, with the long-term goal of qualifying for the Olympic Games. The final paragraph of the article quoted Emily reflecting on her journey. "Every shot teaches you something, but the most important lessons aren't always about hitting the target. Sometimes they're about staying calm when everything around you is chaotic, treating people with respect even when they don't understand what you're doing, and never forgetting that skill comes with responsibility." Mike realized that the day Emily took those pinpoint shots at Eagle Lake had changed his perspective on young people and their potential for excellence. He had witnessed a teenager performing at a level that most adults never achieve, while displaying maturity and professionalism that impressed experienced law enforcement officers. The story became part of Pine Ridge National Park's informal history, shared among staff as an example of how situations that initially appear threatening can sometimes reveal something remarkable instead. Emily's demonstration had shown everyone present that dedication, training, and natural talent can combine to produce truly extraordinary achievements. As Mike continued his daily patrols through the park, he occasionally stopped at the overlook above Eagle Lake, where Emily had made her remarkable shots. The location served as a personal reminder that excellence can appear in unexpected places, and that young people are capable of achievements that surpass all expectations when given proper guidance, training, and opportunities to demonstrate their abilities. The Rangers had radioed about a teenager with a gun that day, but what they discovered was a young athlete whose precision, professionalism, and character would serve as an inspiration for everyone who witnessed her performance. Emily Chun had taken out her targets with pinpoint accuracy, but, more importantly, she had demonstrated that true excellence combines technical skill with character, responsibility, and grace under pressure.